Bill Pfizer, and welcome back to our next session on pornography. In the last session, I mentioned about a cycle, and so what I wanted to do in this session was just kind of give you a brief introduction to that cycle that we've noticed here and what I've noticed here at Crossing Jordan and working with people in dealing with this issue and this battle of pornography. And then we'll spend some time going into a little bit more detail. But to really, and to kick that cycle off, the one thing that we've noticed here, and what I've noticed, is it just seems like pornography in particular, but really with any type of addictive type battles, what I have noticed is it's often coming and stemming out of a root of or spirit of rejection. Now, I'm not saying that if you're dealing with this spirit of rejection that you're going to battle pornography. By no means. I'm just saying that this seems to be a very common theme in an area that we need to address, because what we see in dealing with that spirit of rejection is that there is this, again, this desire to feel important, to feel special, to feel loved, to be wanted and known. And the problem is when we're dealing with that spirit of rejection, we want it, but we can't seem to embrace it. And when we're dealing out of that spirit of rejection, we're looking and really facing things then out of the eyes of our flesh and not being led by the Spirit. Again, if we're working and we're looking for identity out of our own eyes, we're not being able to hear God, and that just further isolates us even more. And again gets us into that hopelessness cycle, and gets us really desiring some type of connection, some type of feeling, and so we begin looking at other areas, and that really is what sparks that cycle. Is you do have often that rejection, which leads to the temptation. And now James talks about that temptation is born out of the desires of our heart, okay, and it's when those desires are enticed that we then go into the sin, and so in that desire, in that need, in that want to feel special, to feel loved, to feel important, to feel valued, spark that within us and leads us down that road. It opens that door to that battle with the pornography, with those images, with that feeling really of a fantasy type connection, which is one of the big areas that we battle. Is that again that it's all a fantasy, and at the moment though it's fulfilling those desires, it's fulfilling those needs, those wants, even though it's false and even though it's fake, and we tend to focus on all that, because when we do go into that temptation, when that sin is opened up, when that sin is born, we are opening up to stepping into that, into those actions, and which is our next step in that cycle. Is we have the temptation, we're going into the action now, and now we're opening up the door to those spirits of sexual impurity, the masturbation, the fantasy sex, the lust, and all those fleshly desires, because again, now we're being led by the flesh. And Galatians talks about that we're either led by the Spirit or we're led by the flesh. And there's a lot of evidence as to when we're being led by the flesh. And it also talks about that crucifying the flesh, which we'll get more into as we delve into each of these areas in that cycle that gets us into that repetitive pattern of the pornography and the addiction and everything that it brings. But yeah, we get born into that action. We're motivated that. Now we've opened the door. And the problem is we're often focused on those temptations, or at least in that action, and we're focused on all this action, that we fail to look at that where the cycle started, which again is often that spirit of rejection. The rejection, the temptation, the action, and now we've delved into that, we've opened the door, and what comes next is what I like to call that unholy trinity, which is guilt, shame, and condemnation. Because now we've opened the door to that. We know within us that we shouldn't be there. We don't want to be there. That condemnation comes, that guilt comes, that isolation and that wanting to get away, that wanting to escape, that feeling bad, that feeling hopeless, that I'm stuck here, and that there's no way out, just then leads back to that, how can God ever accept me? How can other people ever accept me? There's no way that I could show this. If people were to know this, I'm going to be rejected. And then the cycle continues. And so that's where we get stuck into that repetitive area. And what it becomes about is really a spiritual battle, a battle of the flesh against the spirit. And we'll be getting into that in more detail, and the steps and the things that we need to do in order to help break that repetitive cycle, to help break that stronghold that those sins have, so that we can deal with each of those areas and be free. We need the Spirit, but we also need each other. We need that accountability. We need that help. We need to be in battle with other people, because they can bring the encouragement. They can receive the encouragement. And so we'll be talking about each of these cycles in a little bit more detail in some future sessions on this. But like I said, I wanted to do is take a moment to explain the cycle and just what we see here at Crossing Jordan and have experienced, and how we go about helping people in this battle. But we can be led by the Spirit. I hope you found this encouraging. I hope you found this hopeful. And we look forward to presenting more material on this. And like I said, stay tuned, because in the future sessions we'll also be talking about having a support group, having a group that can go through this battle together, that you're not alone in this, and you don't have to be alone. And victory is there and can be there for you.